All right. Hi Suhail, welcome to Data Production. This is a podcast that I run with Mithil. And could you just please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mohammed Suhail, and I am a software engineer. I mean, like, I started off as a computer engineer and into a software engineering, and then currently, right now, I'm into that. I'm into a data science. So I've been working from the past 6 years in a bunch of different domains, right? So currently, right now, I work in e-commerce. Before that, I worked in gaming, and I've worked in blockchain and in fintech as well. So that's just like a brief introduction about like my experience, right? So my education, I started off like in computer engineering, and then I worked a lot with like hardware and stuff. But then since the one common denominator I would say was like coding and like a programming, right? That was one of my main passions. So like I explored different fields within programming, and so while exploring, I went through a lot of different domains and eventually landed into data science. So that's where I am today, 6 years later. So that's like a very brief.
So you had an interesting journey, and you worked in many different domains, right? So it'd be great to know the use cases in many different domains. Especially you started during the time when data science was new, as in like data science was around for a long time, but people didn't know about it, right? It went boom
Yeah,
2014, 15, right? Uh,
exactly.
so how did you get started? And initially you worked as a software engineer. You got a degree in computer science, then you went on to work as a software engineer. So
Yeah.
what were you doing as a software engineer, and what kind of work? Uh,
Yeah. So basically, I mean, like as I mentioned, it was in computer engineering, right? So it was like a lot of hardware based stuff, right? So like my first programming experience, it was mostly in like programming microcontroller applications, right? So I did a lot like a lot of like Arduino programming. So I did a lot of like a C, C++, and then in university we did some Java, but it was mostly C. And then like sometime during my university journey and my projects, I got to work with the Raspberry Pi, and that is where that was like my first introduction into like Python, right? It is through hardware and like sensor data and stuff. So that's where I got into Python. And then I'm like, yeah, this is actually pretty cool, like it's actually a very simple to use language and has a lot of pros and has a lot of pros. So I started from there, and then from there I started exploring different domains, right? So because in the long run I figured that working with hardware is not the most feasible. So I explored different domains, and like soon enough I took up some like freelance projects here and there, which got into like web scraping and like data mining, etc. So that was kind of like my first real taste of like full-fledged data science, right? But like I mean, like even though back in the day, like I didn't really know what data science was and stuff, like because I was like very new to this. Like this is I think around 2019. Like I didn't like have like a proper background of like what data science was, and like how do I get into it. But then I was working on a project which was like web scraping and stuff, and then like this is actually one very interesting story. So I got some data. It's of like web scraping of like a stock data, right? Online stock from Nasdaq and stuff. And then I see the data which are web scraped. And I'm like, what if since we just calling me solely numbers, why do you have like the dollar signs? Why do you have commas? I think we should remove all that stuff over there and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so I'm just doing that. Later on, when I started like doing tutorials, I know there's something called like data pre-processing and like data cleaning and stuff. So like that was like I also it is funny that I was actually applying these concepts without actually knowing what it was. So that's kind of where like I got more into it. I did some more research into it, and I decided that this is what I would like to apply and work on as a future, and I went from there.
so is it easy to transition from, because you already had a computer science background, right? So you were in the programming world from the start, right? So was it
uh
easy
yeah, yeah.
transitioning to data science, other than, I guess, programming was easier for you, right? Because Python is built on C and C++, right? But what about the concepts?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like it did help definitely. Like it did help having like a strong like programming background for like many years, and for that to come into like data science and stuff. I mean, the only thing, I mean, there's like a few concepts within data science. Like it's like the way you approach certain projects, right? Because I've done some mistakes, which is like when I find out it's like very commonly done, because like a lot of people like have this impression, and I had this impression that like, it's like machine learning, something that, this like coding and they make some models, and then next thing you know, it's like what, like 25% accuracy, and then you have no idea what to do. So like that's when like, so while programming did help, like I had to take some time to kind of like learn more about like the whole life cycle and the whole and like the whole process which it needs to be taken place, in order to be successful in it. So yeah.
And then you mentioned about freelancing projects, right? So how did you manage to get freelancing projects during your early days, with no kind of experience in data science, or you been not knowing what data science is?
So actually, what happened was um, like it is. I mean, this freelance project, it is kind of more like kind of like like word to mouth, right? So it's kind of like like it's like someone I knew. It's like he has a friend who needs this project to be
Oh,
done. It's a kind of that thing, right? So the thing is like, so what happened was like with this project, it was like the data mining project, right? So what happened was like before this, like I was just like exploring different stuff, and I found something called like web scraping. Like I had no idea what this even was, and like and then I did like a simple project. It is like someone gave me like one Excel sheet and like this like searches on Google, get like the top 5 search links and just posted on Excel. I'm like, okay, cool. I did that and I kind of understood from there. It's like how you scrape data. And then I told this to my friend and then I'm like, hey, yo, check this out. I've done this. And then like he wanted someone who could scrape like a lot of data. So like he said, okay, so since you do this, can you please help me with this project? I'm like, okay, sure. So then like it was of course on a much bigger scale, and of course it had its own challenges, but like I took the challenge and I certainly learned a lot from that.
oh, nice. And then you worked on blockchain technology, you said, at that company. How
Uh,
we like what is I mean, just start with, what is blockchain? What is blockchain technology? Just
okay,
so that we're on
so
the same
yeah,
page.
yeah. Yeah. So basically, the blockchain technology. So basically, it's like a distributed ledger, right? So basically, it's like whatever transactions you do, right? It is like how to explain. Like as the word says, blockchain. It's like a chain of blocks together, right? So like each block is kind of like connected to a previous block through like a hash. So like whatever transactions you do, it is like recorded on the blockchain. So like whatever is there, like it's very hard to like change or to like remove it. So it's there and it's like distributed and it's like public, right? So and it's also like it's kind of more like anonymous, right? Because so like you don't even know who does it, but you have all the records of all transactions are there. So that's kind of like in a very basic view what blockchain is. And like there are like many different applications of blockchain. The most commonly known is like a cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and stuff like that. That's like the most commonly known aspect, but there are different ways of different
Mhm.
applications. Yeah.
So was that the energy sector that you were working in? The very
Um,
first thing that you were in?
yeah. So actually, like, that was back in 2018. I joined a startup. So then over there, it was like, actually like the concept was actually like very cool, right? So it was like P2P exchange of power and the transactions through blockchain technology, right? So basically,
Oh,
it is this whole concept of like like you have your own solar panels, you have your own grid. So here's the thing. So since I had like the computer engineering background, it was like it involved a lot of hardware and panels and circuitry. So I use that experience, and then at the same time I learned blockchain experience as well. So it's kind of like the merge of these two different worlds into one project. So like from there, like it's like once like certain amount of power is being traded, then you give transactions rather than normal fiat currency like dollars or rupees or dirhams. It is like through crypto. So all the transactions are recorded through the blockchain. So this is the concept we had in mind at the time. And then later on I joined like a fintech company. Like this is like years later, right? Back in 2021. So it was a fintech. So we did a lot of like trading strategies and stuff on different blockchain technologies and different exchanges, right? Centralized and DeFi as well. So that was also where like even though I was primarily like developing like these different trading strategies, like using the REST APIs and stuff, this also involved a lot of data once again, right? So because we had to scrape a lot of like historical data and to test it, and this is called as like back testing, right? So you create a trading strategy and then you test it on like past data to see how it works on live data, and then so you simulate that and then you put it out live. So this involved a lot of data as well.
so those were like hardcore sort of data, or as I mean, software engineer or
Yeah,
SDE,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah,
So,
that's.
so
Mhm.
this job actually required you to handle a lot of data, right?
yeah.
But tell us about your first job as a like a full-fledged data scientist.
Okay, so my first job, like when I was officially like as a data scientist, right? So it was in this company I joined back in 2022, right? So it was like a gaming company basically. That was like I was officially working as a lead data scientist. So it is called. So in this company, basically, the game was basically like it was like on online racing and kind of like motorsports, like Formula One and stuff like that. So it is like creating like a virtual world where people can join from all over the world and like play racing and stuff, right? So we had this like So we had developed like a platform in which people could join and play. And then my job was to collect all of like this large stream of data coming in. So we had like a lot of like live data coming in. So uh, working like a hand to hand with the game strategy department, right? So the game strategy, their job basically is to like create different type of ways in which you can make the user engagement more enjoyable, make the game more enjoyable for the end user. And that was backed by a lot of like data driven decisions. So that's where I came in, right? So they come up with the idea, and then I use like the past data, and then we make simulations, and then we decide, like, can this be done or not? And then I create a whole proof of concept. And once you show that, like, yes, this is something which can be done and this is backed by data, that's when they start to implement this whole thing. So say for example, if you have any like like points, or if any like points or leveling system, right, how would you make it the most effective and make it the most enjoyable? That's where you use all the data and then you implement it over there.
So
So
how exactly did you get this job, since you had a title of a software engineer before this, right?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I had a title of software engineer, but I had a lot of skills already, which like pertain to data science, right? So first and foremost, like as I mentioned, like my programming background really helped. And at the same time, also like since I have been doing a lot of like research, I had done a lot of projects on my own, right? So like I did my own projects here and there about regression, classification, etc. And I put it to my GitHub, and then from there I showed that like even though I haven't officially worked as a data scientist, like I have all these projects to show. So I had all that background as well. And also at the time, like when I applied for the job, I was already into university, right? So I also forgot to mention that I also have like a master's degree in data science. So like I started that I started my studies over there like in January 2022, and by the time I applied for the job, it was already like 1 year in. I mean like one semester in, so it was a condensed course. So like I was already like in the process of like getting a degree in that. So all of these things with my experience and everything that really helped in landing this job, and I got it from LinkedIn. So
so how important was the master's degree to get a data scientist job? Like, if someone is a software engineer, uh, should he do a master's in data science to get into data science, or like, what do you think?
I mean, it's not necessarily. I mean, like, if someone wishes that like he thinks that he could do better with a master's degree, like I would never tell someone like no, you like don't do a master's, right? But then it's kind of more like what do you plan to do after doing the master's? That's the thing. So it's not necessarily that like, or to get into data science, like you need to have a master's degree, but there are jobs out there, kind of like more high paying jobs, you could say, like they kind of require like a more higher qualification, so it would help in the future. But it's not necessarily like like just having a master's degree doesn't necessarily make you better than someone who like doesn't have a degree at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, like all the skills you can learn from online, so it's about how you apply these skills and stuff like that. So yeah.
And what made you go for a master's in the first place?
So what happened was that, like, while I was researching all of this on my own, right? So then about like the different data science concepts, and also I decided that like I would want to go full fledged into this, right, and like completely, like get into this field, and like expand my different opportunities, which could be potentially there, right? Because what happened was, like, for many years I have always wanted to do like a master's, but I wasn't I wasn't very sure in which field, because I was going into like this pure like pure like computer science and masters, or like cybersecurity here and there. But then, so like the plan of masters was always there. But then once I decided that like I'm going to shift into this field, I thought, let me get the master's degree and completely trying to transition myself into data. So like in the hope that in the future this could help me land some better opportunities, so I opted to do the masters.
Got
Was
it.
this a remote role, or because I see that you are working in Dubai, or at the same time you were doing masters from UK, or
uh
were you in the UK and the job was remote?
no, I mean, like, I mean, so my master's was from Middlesex University, but they have like a campus like in Dubai, right? So basically, it's kind of more like a work in the day and then go to university at night, kind of a thing. So I had to balance both of that together.
Cool. And so, in the way in the gaming industry, right? Like one thing I've heard in the gaming industry is it's really tough to build, products in the gaming industry. And if if people want to get really a good kind of experience and work on some challenging problems, gaming industry is the one. So, what are the different use cases, and what are the challenges in working in the gaming industry, especially the applications of data science in that industry?
Yeah, so I would say like the biggest challenge is because end of the day, like when you're developing your game, you want to make it more enjoyable for the end user, right? For the person playing the game. So you kind of have to think like from the end user's perspective, like what would he want in this game? What would like a typical fan of this particular game? So in our case, in our case, it is more like a like racing and like motorsports, right? So you kind of have to like dive into that world, even though if you're not like particularly a fan of that environment, a fan of that sport or something, like you kind of have like get a proper understanding of that, and then to see like what are the different ways in which you can increase the enjoyment of it, also understand like the details of that particular thing, and then from there see what all data you can collect, because the biggest challenge also at the end of the day is that you can't collect everything,
Mhm.
right? There's always like certain data points which you cannot collect. So you can have like kind of have like work around that, like if you cannot collect these particular data points, what can you do with the stuff which you do have with you right now? So kind of that thing, right?
Mhm.
But then at the end of the day also you're working with a lot of people who are in the industry, so it helps, like you're like bouncing ideas off each other. So yeah, so I mean like it's about like trying to make it more enjoyable for the end user. That's, you can
Mhm.
say in that way,
So
yeah.
were you involved in the data collection part? Like how, I mean,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
were the engineers who were in doing those stuff?
Yeah. So basically, like once once our platform was live, so like I was also working hand in hand with the actual like with the actual like game developers as well, right? So with the game we had like a REST API was there, in which you could collect like huge amounts of data, huge amount of data which could stream in. So like I had the API with me, I had to make a few configurations to the backend code, since it was like it was an open source code, right? API
Mhm.
code was there. So depending on the requirements which we needed, which also once again making those requirements needed a lot of like a backend research, right? It's like it's not as simply oh okay we just want lab time and stuff like that. No, it's like a lot of different things which you need to do a lot of research and preparation beforehand, and then you have those requirements, and then you customize the API, and then from there you give it to the backend team, and from there we start a lot of testing, and then like as the platform is going on, and then how does the data come in and stuff like that, and also like the
Mhm.
speed of the data, right? And also like the size, because like our systems need to be like fast enough and more efficient enough to handle large amount of data at coming at a very high speed. So that was also another challenge which we had to face.
Okay, and then what was so if you could describe, one of the AI use case, right? So once you have the data, what was the first project or, um, you know, yeah, what was like the first AI based product that you built out of that data?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like without going to like too much details, since and the end stuff, without going to like too much details. So, it is my first project. It was like predicting like a racer's performance on a particular track, right? So basically, like rather than just like his past data, like what was his speed and stuff like that, we also
Mhm.
have data of like the particular track itself, right? So like on what different conditions we have, because we can even customize in the game like the different conditions, whether it's like whether it's like it's like day or night, or whether like the ground is like wet or dry, and also like the type of car you're using. So like uh the main idea, so like the main outcome of this project was like to have if you generate like a racing lineup of like 10 different racers, and this is the cars they're driving, and this on this track on these conditions, predict like
Mhm.
what is going to be like the outcome of this race. So based on this outcome also we implement this into the points and leveling system, right? So say for example, if you're predicted to come at like number 5, and you end up coming at like number 2 or 3, then
Mhm.
your points increase kind of like that, and also that depending on the size of the points you get more. So that was a lot
Mhm.
of that.
So you're also
That's
doing like consumer behavior analysis, right? To see, so you have 10 different, let's say, racing areas or categories, and which one do people enjoy the most? So depending on that, do you like
um
sort of filter out
yes.
keep and which one to get rid of, or?
Yeah, I mean something like that we had, right? So on our platform, right? So we have different type of race. So you have like single player, you have like multiplayer championships, tournaments, etc. So we have a lot of different, like different ways to like play on the platform. And then one thing actually we discovered that from all the four, like we thought like like multiplayer like championships would be fun, but
Mhm.
we found out that like the racing tournaments was like the most popular. Everyone wanted to be a part of like the racing tournaments. So I discovered this like with the data we had, and like a lot huge number of people want to play tournaments, but the tournament structure at the time it was like very fixed, and only very few people could come at the time, and rest could be like would be like left out. So I pitched this to our game strategy team, and from there they devised this whole algorithm on their own in which you could take it as, and it was actually like a very cool like a tournament structure they had, in which you could have like a huge number of racers could join. You could have like more than like 100 different racers or 200 different races, but you could only have like 4 heats, right? So heat one, heat two, semifinal, and finals. So they developed this algorithm that like depending on the number of races, like how can we, like determine who goes on to the next stage or not, and then all that. So we had to develop a lot of different mathematical formulas. And then once again, once they pitched this idea back to me, then with the data, then I started simulating all of this. This was like not my machine learning, but simulating all of this, right? And then we showed that like, yes, this is possible. Let's go ahead with it. So we managed to implement that, and it was successful.
Yeah, I always get curious about, in any game, how do they decide on which features to add on, depending on, if people would be interested in this. And, if let's say you add on a feature to your game, and do you do like a A/B testing or something to figure out, okay, this feature is really, people are actually like it, and then you keep it. But if people don't like it, do you get rid of it? Or, what's a strategy that you use to make those decisions, right?
So like if we have had something like that, so like in our game, we had option of like adding like new skins and stuff like that to your car and stuff like that. So we had all, and like many different things, and then also like if we have like a wide variety of different tracks which we add and remove, right, all the time, depending on what like people enjoy. And then we discovered that like certain racers, like they enjoy certain type of conditions, right? Certain type of tracks, like we measured their engagement with the game and so on. And like like how long do they spend with the game, like we measure each user's engagement, right? Because like we have some tracks was there which like very less people used, and they don't engage much with it also. And we also notice that like many people they just like they just get bored and leave, and this leave like mid race. And then we see some other tracks with which like a lot of people always like that's like their favorite track, and people go towards there. And then we take all of the, and like we're like constantly like observing this and a lot of pattern recognition. And then from there we decide, okay, this is what people want, this is what people enjoy, how can we maximize on this? And then we develop things from there.
That's very interesting work, yeah. Actually,
Indeed,
any
yeah,
question?
it's actually very fun actually, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been in Dubai uh, for a lifetime, right?
Basically I'm born and brought up, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about Dubai. Like, how is the tech scene there? How like if is Dubai a good place to be in if you are in tech or in data science?
Oh, for sure. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of work being done in Dubai, like in the tech scene, and it's certainly growing a lot, especially in the last couple of years, especially when it comes to like a blockchain and blockchain fintech, and then also into like data science as well, because like all of this go hand in hand together, right? So definitely, like it's a very promising scene, and it's only getting like bigger from there. Like we have a lot of like startups coming up as well. Also, kind of like like the whole ease of doing business is like increased a lot over here. So you have a lot of like newer startups and newer ideas coming about. You have a lot of different like incubators over here, right? Tech incubators over here, in which it encourages people, to also kind of like come up with their own ideas, and encourage them to like build new things. And then at the same time, even the government over here. So we have something called the golden visa, right? So this is a new system which we have in Dubai. It's been there from the last like 1 or 2 years. So basically, what the Dubai government is doing is kind of like encouraging people in these particular fields, and especially in data science. So if you're like a data scientist or like in machine learning, or if you have like a master's or like a PhD degree, they give you like a 10-year visa to like stay here, develop and your skills, and like implement it over here, and like give a benefit to the society as well. So if you're in the data science field, definitely Dubai would be a very promising place to be in right now.
So one thing I heard, someone, yeah, there was a video or something, oil, it's a
Yeah.
hub, right? Go in future, apparently AI is going to be the new oil for Dubai. A lot of investment, and you know, yeah, there's a huge interest from the government, and there's huge investment from the government, and they want to make, Dubai and the next
The
big thing.
data hub, yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest hub for the AI. Right? So is it easier? So, let's say for the freshers, is it easier to land a job in Dubai, and in terms of the interview processes, is it same as everywhere else, or is it really competitive? Is it a lot of competition for the jobs in this field?
I would say, I mean, obviously, if you're like a fresher, you may not be as qualified as compared to the more experienced people, right? So there is that competition as well. Is like there as well. So like because like the thing with Dubai, it's like people from like all over the world has access to
Mm,
Dubai, right? It's like one of those like, and like this is actually one of the things about Dubai, which like it's like kind of like it's kind of like a whole melting pot of like different countries. Like so, a lot of people can come to Dubai, and also with the visa processes, also it's also very easy also to come to Dubai and to work over here as well. So that competition is there, of course. Um, so even for like a fresh graduate, also like they would, like I mean, you can get to like like a starting job, but if you want to get into like more higher paid job and stuff like so, you really have to like upskill yourself a lot. So I
mm,
mean, this is kind of like the same thing as like anywhere else in the world, like you can start in like in an internship or like in a junior role, but you would have to like learn a lot, and there's like a very like large learning curve, especially if you're not coming from a tech background, because I would say like I was fortunate because I came from a programming background, so the transition was a lot simpler, a lot like easier. But like and then even back in my time, when I did my engineering, like there was no like AI bachelor's.
mm.
There was not like only machine learning bachelor's was there, but now I see that currently it's there, and I see that in their curriculum as well, they do a lot of machine learning and stuff. So I mean that's good, but at the end of the day, there is still some programming involved. Is there? So I see there's I so that's actually one of the gap which I've noticed actually, right? It's like between AI and programming. There is a gap is there, which a lot of people don't have that. So when
Yeah.
you have like programming and you have like the AI basics, then definitely that would help a lot.
Yeah, and also there's a big gap between, the training in academia versus what is required in industry, right? They teach
Exactly.
in academia, but the thing is they teach you the basic foundations, whereas industry, basic foundations, maybe a few years ago, that was more than enough to get into industry, but now it's much more required than the basics, right, to get into industry because of competition. But in terms of the market, are there enough, is there enough market um, for all or are there more skilled people? So, or are they even, right? So,
And no,
yeah.
I mean like in terms of the market, yeah, I mean definitely, I mean because as I mentioned, like especially in Dubai, you have like a lot of new a lot of new businesses, a lot of like new startups building up, and a lot of companies like now they've seen the potential of machine learning and deep learning as well, right? So they've invested a lot of money into building their own like in-house teams as well. So this awareness is there definitely, right? Especially in the I mean, of course, you have like the top tech firms in the world, Google, Microsoft, IBM, they're all based in Dubai, but as well as a lot of the local companies, it's positive sign to see that like they have seen the potential of this, and like they know that like in order to like really boost your business, you really have to invest a lot into this field, right? So there are a lot of new positions coming up, and at the same time, you have a lot of like machine learning firms, like so startups coming up as well. So a lot of like jobs coming up, a lot of opportunities are there, and it's only expected to get better in the years to come.
And in terms of pay scale, how is it? Um, how's the space pay scale in Dubai for, let's say, freshers versus someone who's got a few years of experience? And how's the negotiation factor there?
Yeah, and no, I mean, like, of course, I mean, not only in the data science, but in like whichever field you go. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
like the pay scale with, I mean, as you get more experience, then it's like a very steep curve, of like how much you can get paid. Because of course you can get paid less, 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 and then as soon as you have like a few years of experience, then the pay scale like really goes high. Because it's not like some other fields where it's kind of more like straight. It's more like linear, right? So it's like, oh, okay, it's not like some fields. Okay, fine. It's like every year you increase your salary by what, like 20%, 25%. The thing like with data science, especially I mean like right now, is that like since it's like it's like kind of like more new compared to some other
Mhm.
fields, right? So if you have the experience, then you could really like maximize on your income definitely. But having said that as well, like when you compare like a fresher in data and in machine learning and versus a fresher in like conventional programming, like of course like he would earn a lot more. So like you're
Mm-hmm.
already starting from good, and then you only increase better from there.
So is it 25% increment at the same company, or if you were to jump to a different company year on year,
I mean, end of the day, I mean, like it
on average? I
kind
mean.
of like I mean, it kind of like depends on how you negotiate, and it depends on company to company at the end of the day, because like um because some people what they do, they work for 2 years, they jump, and then
Yeah.
and then once you jump to a new company, and then they show this, so what I can do for you, because like certain companies, so they're, as I mentioned, they've invested a lot into like data and stuff, so they want experienced professionals, and then when you tell them like this is what I can do for you, this is skills that I have which you need, then that really increases your pay scale from there.
Yeah, I asked this because, like for instance, in Canada and US, there's a huge difference between pay scales, right? Someone here with a couple of years of experience would be making twice as in the US as they would here, even though, there's more skill set with the person who's working here than there, but they're less experienced, but they still pay huge, right? And year on year, there's a huge increment there as compared to here. Like here, probably 5 to 6%, depending on how you negotiate it, as compared to there, right? So that's why I was
I think
curious about
it's
how
also like the size of the market, right? Because of course, like US, if you're
exactly.
working, if you're working in like in like the Wall Street, or if you're working in Silicon Valley, so especially there, so there will be bigger opportunities, of course. But yeah,
Oh yeah, I expect in Silicon Valley. I mean, it's expensive, right? So obviously
yeah.
people pay more money to survive there, right?
I
But yeah,
think
it all depends on
Sam
the economy.
Sam Altman is trying to raise $5 trillion from UAE, right?
I've heard about it. I've heard of that. So like that's like, so like here, especially like in Dubai, like you have all like the big names coming here, investing over here. So because of like this, as I mentioned, because of like the golden visa and stuff, right? So it's attracting a lot of like these big names from all over the world to come and invest over here, and like with the ease of doing business, right? As compared to different parts of the world, which this is what encourages people to come to Dubai, and that's why you see a lot of like these big firms, like okay, they have offices in Canada and the US, and maybe some like in India and all, but they'll always come to Dubai as well. If they're coming to the Gulf, they come. I mean, now okay, fine. It's Saudi also. It's growing a lot, but for many years before that, it's always Dubai. Everything Dubai.
And how's the work-life culture? I mean, is it similar to how it's in the US and Canada, like European
Yeah.
countries, and like 8 hours of shift, or do you have to work like 10 hours, 12 hours, and uh,
I would say, I mean, like I'm not sure about the US, but I think like in Europe, I think they work. It's kind of like more relaxed over there, right? It's more short hours as compared to Dubai. So I mean, end of the day, I mean, it depends on the company as well, right? Because some companies are that they have their office are based in they're based in US or Canada or in Europe, whatever.
Mhm.
So they have their work culture over there. It's like short hours, and that's also applies for the public sector as well. But for the more private sector, local companies, the timings would be a lot more. So the work-life balance can be challenging sometimes. So that can be a factor. Like because especially people finish work late, they commute home and all that. So
Yeah.
and especially when it gets very busy in the peak hours and depending on the company, right, if you're putting things into production and stuff like that, so it can really they can be challenges sometimes with like work
But
life.
do you account for those when you negotiate for the salary? Do you guys like account for, okay, it's gonna be, like, do you ask them, in terms of hours, like, okay, how's your.
Yeah, I mean that sometimes as well, but then at the same time, like I mean, like for my example, I can speak for myself, right? So it's kind of more like a give and take, right? Because like there will be times where like you need to like work longer and stuff like that, or even come in on the weekends. But then if I do this for you, like, you like give me some time off, or like this work from home, or kind of the thing. So it's kind of like a give and take. So it really depends on company to company.
Uh-huh. Got it. And then in terms of the benefits, is it I'm not sure about Dubai. Is it like free healthcare? Not sure. But in
No, no, no,
benefits,
no, no.
no.
It's on a free healthcare over here. No, not that's not the case.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Questions, Ashit?
Not really. Um, any tips for people who are trying to get into data science in Dubai?
Okay, tips for people. Okay, for tips for people getting into that data science. I mean, not particularly in Dubai. It applies to Dubai also, and also like all over the world as well. Um, a lot of people have this misconception, as I mentioned earlier, that Now, like it's all like it's all coding, it's all programming. So you just do that and just start training stuff. That's not necessarily the case because uh because when you do your research like in data science, there's a lot of math involved. There's a lot of calculus involved as well. So it would help to have that background as well. I mean, not like complete full-fledged like math and stuff like that, all calculus 2 and 3 and like very in-depth, but just basic things, like say for example, if you're doing like a regression algorithm, like you kind of need to know what is like a regression, and like how would you show it on a graph on a very simple idea, right? So that thing would help having that background, because like once you have your model and like you and like in order to kind of like know, okay, how is it performing and stuff like that, is it good or not, you kind of need to know what's happening inside the model itself, not having like a whole black box model, you have no clue what's going on. So that thing helps as well. And while as the programming also helps, and besides that also is like whatever field you're applying, you need to understand that field very properly. It's called domain knowledge, as you all know, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, okay, fine, we have this data, just put it over here. Like I don't know, like some like this decision tree gets some output. Okay, what do you do with this output now? No one knows. Because what happened was like I faced this problem once, right? So when I worked in like the fintech company I worked in, right, back then, my finance experience was not very high. My crypto experience, I didn't really have a lot of experience. It's basic, right? So from there, what happened was, I did a lot of projects and stuff, my own stuff. No, no. So what I'm saying, so we got all this data, and I did some projects like over there with the crypto projects which we had, and then I did some basic modeling over there, and then some regression models and some time series models, and then I got the output. Okay, what do I do with this now? I have no clue. What does this mean? No idea. So that was like that's when I learned, and that like I should have probably done a whole lot of research into this and then implemented these ideas. So just a few tips: is have a proper domain knowledge of what you're getting into.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And for freshers, yeah, I do feel like, they should focus on the basics and, get things right. Not worry too much about the domain because, you're a fresher, you don't know what industry you're gonna land into, and there's a
Exactly.
lot of opportunity for you to learn from the seniors, right? But once you land there and you want to try and go up a ladder, then that's where understanding the domain knowledge plus, like, that's what happened with me, right? When I was trying to level up myself, one thing was, working with stakeholders, right? um, and no matter how long you've been working with stakeholders, you really have to get a grip on that. Try and understand what they need, learn how to, let's say you provide the wrong information, learn how do you get around that, how do you resolve that issue, right? Where you provided the wrong information, then what do you do after
Exactly.
that, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Because that's the thing with like with this type of field, right? Because no two projects are the same. You're always doing something new all the time because different people
Exactly.
have different requirements. So how do you customize that requirement into your product? So you kind of have to like be very flexible over there. So that's one thing which I've also experienced and I've
Yeah,
discovered.
especially in the retail industry, right? Because in the retail industry, you have so many, like, departments. Like, you have supply, you have marketing, you have logistic, you have operations, finance, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
end up working, like, I end up working with so many different people, and it's just very different domain. So, like, okay, you're working
Yes.
with marketing now, you got to learn about marketing. Okay, well, they need some analysis, like, let's say affiliates is it what's giving them money, right? Do they bring customers,
Exactly.
and you got to understand, okay, about affiliates and all that stuff, customer lifetime value and all that stuff, right? So yeah, it's a lot of work, and but it comes with the experience and
Exactly.
actually
Exactly.
doing
Yeah.
it, right? Because people get scared of it. People don't, like, I know people who've been data scientists for 4 or 5 years and they still haven't been able to level up because they don't directly work with stakeholders, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
And
that's it. I mean, that's also the thing which I've really learned. Like over the years, like you really need to like upskill yourself really, because competition is only increasing. I mean, because like a lot of people are like getting into this field now as compared like a couple of years ago. So competition
yeah,
is a lot of competition, and like to have an edge on the market, you really need to like pick up yourself, and especially now we have like generative like AI also there, so which also kind of like helps a lot as well with the work and cuts down a lot of like the more menial tasks. So like you really need to upskill yourself a lot, because like I've seen like I see like young graduates now. Okay, fine. I have pandas and NumPy experience. Okay, great. Okay, fine. So a lot of stuff can be replaced. You can be replaceable easily, but that's why. I mean, this is for like a more junior level, but like as you get more skilled, and then as you mentioned, working with like stakeholders, so you kind of develop like your own niche, so you're not as easily replaceable, right? So that's very
Yeah.
important, something which
Yeah.
I have discovered.
And the validation part, like for instance, we had a lot of new people, and yeah, they're doing their work, they reach out to stakeholders, and they provide their numbers, and it turns out that when you go and ask them, like, okay, what did you provide them? And they're like, yeah, here's my query. I just gave them the numbers from this query, but they didn't bother validating the query
Mm-hmm.
because, okay, it's a right query. Yeah, I just wrote it. It's a right query. I give them the numbers. It must be right. It's so trying to validate, like, ask, even now, like, even though I'm a senior, I still write queries and I still get validation from a bunch of my colleagues before I give
Exactly.
numbers to the stakeholders, right? Because it's
Exactly.
need to have more eyes on the results than just assuming that it must be right. Because at the
E-
end of the day, they're making big decisions based on the analysis that you provide to them,
Yes,
right?
yes, exactly, and then also there's also like this one more thing I've discovered, right? Because it's also like important to have like more accurate data, and it's also like even more important, it's like seeing how you it's like how you display this data to them, right? So it's a lot of front end stuff comes over there. So that's something which I've discovered. Okay, fine. So you have this, you have some data you put into like if it's in your database, you have like a MySQL thing is there. Okay, so what's our monthly stuff? You just like type out something, comes on like it comes on like a command prompt or terminal. Okay, fine, great. For me as a developer, okay, I can see that. Now you show it to someone else, okay, he has no clue. And we actually had this one meeting was there. Okay, so this fine. So this is our like monthly report comes for the finance department. He shows like the whole like command line terminal, and then like that's when I told him, like, this is not how you show it to the particular department. You kind of like put it into dashboards, and that's the things like Power BI, Tableau comes over there. And
Yeah.
if you're making front end, like web based, so there's the Flask and Django stuff like that is there. Which once again, because I have like full stack development experience, so I was able to like implement those stuff, which a lot of like conventional like AI graduates may not typically have. So that's also where the upskilling comes in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one other thing, I think we still have time, right? Yeah, a few minutes. So, the other thing I want to discuss about is, once you get to the senior, right? What it takes to be a senior, right? A lot of people are trying to get to that level, right? So when you're working as part of a team, I mean, I want to have your take on that. What does it take to be a senior data scientist in a team?
Yeah, so to be AC, I mean, like, once you have a lot of experience, right? So you've been through like the different challenges which come up, like, like when you're like starting out and stuff, and when you're doing certain processes and you're, doing certain things, what are the challenges which have come up, right? And so when you have your own team now, you kind of have to keep in mind that like these challenges can come up. So, you need to give like the proper time. So that's where that management comes in very handy over
Mm.
here, because for any particular project, you need to like you need to know how much time it takes also, and because you know that like some things can take time and some things can crash and mess up, so you need to have that buffer, so time management is there. And also deciding like how you delegate the tasks to your juniors, and like how many people you need to have as well, because
Yeah.
like what it takes for certain things that can be done by one person, or certain things like it's like too big or too complex to be done by one or two people, so you must have like your own team, so you need to have a proper like a resource management as well with that. So that's so that this all comes with experience at the end. That's like the main bottom line experience, and all of this comes up from there. So
Yeah. And since you come from a software background, right? You already know the importance of software development lifecycle and how important
exactly,
it is to build
exactly,
things having long-term vision, right? So
yeah.
what's your take on that? Like, do you think organizations are doing that, and in that, people working as in data teams, right? Do you think there's still a big gap where people are not actually visionary in terms of long term, and whatever they're building, they're focusing more on short term than long term goals?
Yes, actually, that is true. And like this is something which I've seen in my own workplace, and I also spoke to some other like people, and they also agree with me on this, because I've seen this as well. Because like this is one problem which happened, right? So you have this one amazing team of like the data scientists and like AI, machine learning, deep learning. Like they make the most complex models, amazing accuracy, everything is there. But then at the end of the day, you're like implementing these modules into your software development project, right? Into your source code over there, and then the thing like with software development, especially when it's like it's like high speed, low latency kind of things, right? This is one of the major problems which comes up. Okay, because everything has to be fast, right? Especially because this example, it was like in the fintech company which I worked in, right? So we're talking about like milliseconds, you know. It's like 30 to 40 milliseconds. You have to do trades and round trades and all that stuff. So when you're implementing, so when you're integrating the AI models over there, the AI engineers, they're not typically trained to be software engineers, right? And you know, to follow like the whole software development principles, and you know how to decrease your late latency. That is like just basic just coding and stuff. So that there's a lot of latency was increased over there, and that affected the trading algorithm performance, even though the results were quite accurate, right? Because you're not following like the whole time and space complexities and all of these different things, which is very important, you know.
Mhm.
Because as I mentioned, because like we did some testing with our data, right? And we saw that there's like, especially when you have to make like a profitable trade, the window of opportunity is so small because it's so competitive. We're talking of like 40 to 50 milliseconds. It's like that.
Mhm.
It's like that minute. So you have to be very fast with that. So the in terms of this in terms of like the execution speed, the AI models that was there developed at the time was not like suitable. So that is where there was a gap was there, in which the both teams had to like come together, because the software development team doesn't have much knowledge about like AI and stuff like that, and vice versa. So this is something which a lot of people are getting into, right? So if you're coming from a software background, then you would have this thing in mind, and you would make your models to be more time making more time efficient. So this was very important.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I do see that, apart from the e-commerce industry, I do see a lot of organizations struggling with, you know, building something which is long term, right? People are still doing things sort of okay, Jupyter notebooks and here and there, and there's no best practices in place.
Exactly.
There's no exact, even there's no even proper project structure in place, right? There's like
Yeah, yeah.
everything scrambled here and there, and then people try to come back and they try and find, so people quit jobs, then there's new who come and join, new developers who come and join, then now they're struggling and they spend months and months just to decode what the other people what the other person has done, right?
Oh
um,
yeah, oh yeah. This is like lack of proper documentation, having all the legacy code. Yeah, been there, done that, man. It's just
yeah.
it's a nightmare. It's a complete nightmare. Been there, done
Yeah, I
that.
have friends who are working in the insurance industry, and they hated it. Like they've been there for 5 years and they hated it. And there's people from actuarial sciences and other domains. They come and they want to get their hands on coding and they just want to do object-oriented programming. Why? Well, it sounds fun. That's why. There's no need for it, but it just sounds fun.
Exactly.
So why not do it, right? So yeah, I understand that. Well, I think we are yeah, I think we're on right on time. Any last questions, Ashit, for him, or do you have questions for us?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so if you could just tell me like more about like like where you see that where you see like AI machine learning going, like based on your skills and your experience, like where do you see like this field going in the next 5 years? Like, what do you think? Like, what is your observations to both of you? Like, what's your observation? Like, where do you see this field going in the next 5 years with all with all the developments now, and like how much do you think like does generative AI have an impact? Like, what do you think? I mean, and it's a very abstract question, but yeah, go for it.
I think
So yeah, go ahead, Ashit. I'll let you go first.
I think generative AI, the impact that generative AI will have in the next 5 years is that, like my prediction is that uh, it'll actually create more need of actually skilled data scientists,
Mm.
and it will most likely replace the like a lesser skilled data scientists, right? So like the people who have like a very shallow knowledge of data science, that they will not be able to get jobs anymore, and the people
Mm.
who are really skilled at what they do, they will stay. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And then yeah, what about you?
So I have 2 points, right? So one is, yeah, like I should said, right? Like people who are less skilled, it's I do see that happening even now. Back when I graduated, it was much easier for me to land a job in this sector than it is now, because A, the market is changing like quickly. And then B, there's so much more knowledge that the new grads have to learn. And again, it's not been taught at the universities, right? And the thing that's been taught at the universities, it's already bullshit. It's not enough for people to land a role in the industry, right? And on top of that, there's new things, happening every single year in AI, new revolutions happening every single year in AI. There's so much more stuff that people have to learn, right?
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
and the grads, whatever's happening now, so new grads who graduated, let's say last year, for them, the trend is generative AI. So they come out, then they're like, okay, the generative AI seems to be the trend, and they just want to learn that, right? But what about the other things that really need it? Because companies are not just doing generative AI. The whole stuff that they're doing, the entire organization's projects and everything, they are doing the old stuff. On top of that, there's the generative AI applications, right? So,
Yeah.
losing track of the other stuff that they have to spend time, like they should really learn, build those foundations, right? You go
The
get a
basics. Yeah.
directly jump to masters. You go to masters, spend years, getting those foundations right, then you jump onto advanced level, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening, right? People just jumping on generative AIs, right? So that's one thing. So I think it's going to be very competitive for people to land a role than it used to be. The second thing, so last year, I kept saying this in all the podcasts is MLOps is the next trend. And I still, when the generative AI came into the trend, it's like, no, I was wrong. Maybe it's generative AI. But now I feel like, no, it's still going to be MLOps. That's going to be a trend because
Yeah.
there's a MLOps and generative AI as well, LLMs. And at the end of the day, those need to be deployable, not just
Yeah.
deployable, but those need to be maintainable. And you gotta have some monitoring system in place and all that. So you're building at the end of the day the whole system, right? And
Yeah.
that's so I still feel like MLOps is a big trend going in the future. Once the companies realize that okay, we have the applications, but just like data science, right? People used to hire data scientists before data engineers. And they're like, okay, we don't have data, we don't have the infrastructure. Why did we hire data scientists? And then
Exactly. Yeah. This is a problem. Yeah.
data engineers, right? And then past couple of years, ML engineers get paid so much more than data scientists. Why? Because now we have data engineers who build the infrastructure, we have data scientists who provide analytical stuff. But what about the deployment? Where do we,
Exactly. Yeah.
use it?
Yes,
Now,
I mean this is a kind of a problem because like the whole data science just became like this whole buzzword. It became this whole jargon kind of a thing. Oh, it's data science. It's coming to data science. Okay, like and then the thing is, okay, and then like people just like have this whole idea. Oh, it's all like neural networks. It's just circles and lines. Wow. Oh, wow, can I build this as well? And like you have no clue what you're doing, and so this causes a lot of problems, especially those who are like new to this field and don't have like proper background. So this comes
yeah,
back to the point, like to like properly upskill yourself, like especially and like build your own niche, as I mentioned, right? Because that's something which you said, because that's only the way you can really survive now. Because with the competition increasing right now, so yeah,
yeah.
that's like that's like that like I said that build your own niche. That's like the like one main like take home advice like in a nutshell to any like aspiring data scientist getting into the field now.
I think predictive ML still brings 99% of the business value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in 5 years also, like predictive ML will still bring majority of the like dollar value compared to generative ML.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's true.
Yeah, I would go with the like more on the analytical side. The main reason being it's like like I work in the retail industry, and a lot of even if I see the other retail industries like Walmart and Costco and all those big industries, right? Big companies, there's a lot businesses create a lot more value from the analytical stuff than the ML
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? Why? Because you don't go to ML if you can get things done just with the analytical stuff, right? Extracting so much insight just from the data alone is generating so much revenue for the companies, like in Decathlon. You know, that
Mm-hmm.
alone is generating so much value. Like now, people have directions to go to, right? They can make decisions just by me going extracting some numbers and giving it to them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
AI stuff, yeah, there's this AI stuff, but again, really depends. Do you actually need it? If you don't need it, then why spend money on the resources? And I have friends at startups where, you know, they, for instance, one time they left the Kubernetes running for almost a month. They didn't need it, but they left it running resources for a month, and it costed them $10,000.
Wow.
And it was a waste of money, right? The CTO got fired after that because it wasn't needed, right? Like, why do you need it? If it's not necessary, then don't go there, right? So
Exactly.
analytical stuff is still, I feel, at the top. Even it's just that this hypes about ML and
Yeah,
deep learning.
it's all like the hype, and like this becomes like a whole buzzword and jargon, especially on LinkedIn as well. Like you see people. I mean, like, how do I say? You can say you have like a lot of this quote unquote, like wannabe data scientists over there. They're like, oh, data scientists, and people go to Coursera and like Udemy, and then they just get courses on that. Why? Nah, because it's just like the hot topic over there. Okay, what are you gonna do with this? I have no idea. We'll see. What do you mean you will see? That's the problem, right? Like
I mean,
I see a
people also see a lot of like product companies, right? Like product companies where they're building something using, there's the ML and deep learning is the heart of the product. But at the end of the day, they forget that, yeah, that's the heart of the product, which is running the product at the end of the day. But then once that product is in use, it's out there, it's collecting data, then that's where you need the analytical stuff, right? Because now you build the product, it's there, right? But how do you make that product better? That's going to be based on
exactly,
collect. That's going to be based off the analytical insights that you provide, right? So at the end of the
absolutely,
day, it all comes back to analytical stuff, right? So the ML and AI part stays there, yeah, but it's again, you don't need a lot of people doing that stuff. Maybe one or two ML engineers, that's it. But you need a lot
exactly.
more. Like recently we fired two people, and we ended up hiring one data analyst, and I was the only guy who was into like providing analytical stuff, so it all come down to me, right? So I had so many people reaching out to me for requests, and we don't have many people in the team who can fulfill that request, right? um,
Exactly.
but in terms of building model and deploying there, that one person or one ML engineer or two ML engineers is more than enough. But on the data side, you need a lot more people who can extract values and provide it to them, because the number of requests that you get, it's much higher than you know on the other side, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that is true.
Okay, I think that's all I have. And yeah, no, it was a very insightful conversation, and I think we had an interesting chat.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
Ash.
sure, definitely. It was like it was very nice catching up with you guys, and like having this whole conversation, and like getting more insights about the field in like general, and like learning about the field, like learning from each other. So that's very nice. Thank you guys for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks, Ashit, for finding him and inviting it. And thanks, Suhail, for your time and actually taking out time. I guess it's late night for you, but taking out time and spending an hour with
Yeah,
us.
no worries, mate. Like it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So like, thank you for like calling me as well. So yeah, it's my pleasure.
Okay,
Thanks for
awesome.
taking
Yeah,
the time.
I'll let you know when once the recording's up on YouTube. Yeah, good, Ashit.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Mm,
thanks for taking out the time.
okay.
And yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
See you.